You defend them without even thinking. Someone criticizes your father, and your chest tightens. Someone questions your partner, and you're already building the counterargument before they've even finished the sentence. Someone doubts your mentor, and suddenly you're not calm anymore. You're not neutral anymore. You're not even yourself anymore for a moment. You call it loyalty. You call it love. You call it respect. But what if none of that is true? What if the fierce defense you mount every single time has nothing to do with the person you're protecting, and everything to do with something inside you that you cannot afford to look at? Freud had a name for this. Lacan had a warning about it. And by the end of this video, you will never defend someone the same way again. Here's the fact most people never hear and never want to hear. The people we idealize are not being protected by us. We are being protected by them. Stay, because what I'm about to show you is not comfortable. It's the difference between loving a person and worshiping a fantasy that happens to wear their face. And most people never find out which one they're doing until the fantasy collapses and there's nothing left standing. The image you built of someone, the untouchable version, the wise father, the perfect partner, the flawless mentor, the mentor who could never be wrong. That image is doing a job. And the job is not about them. It never was. Let's begin. Right now, in your life, there is probably someone you cannot stand to hear criticized. Not disagree with gently. Cannot stand. Something in you rises before you even process the words. Before you've weighed the evidence. Before you've asked yourself if the criticism might even be fair. That reaction is not really about defending a reputation. It's about defending a structure. A structure inside your own mind, built a long time ago, quietly depending on that person staying exactly as perfect as you need them to be. This video is about that structure. About why we idealize the people closest to us, our parents, our partners, our mentors, and why touching that idealized image feels like touching something in ourselves. The promise is simple and it is not comfortable. By the end, you will stop seeing people and start seeing the fantasy you built around them. You will start noticing the difference between loving someone and needing them to be flawless so that you, yourself, can feel whole. And once you see that difference, you cannot unsee it. It changes how you argue with your family. It changes how you excuse your partner. It changes how you talk about the person who shaped your entire worldview. Let's start with the man who first mapped this territory, decades before anyone had the language for it. Block 1. The defense Freud found hiding inside love. Freud spent decades studying how the mind protects itself. Not from outside danger. From its own unbearable truths. One of his central discoveries was this. The mind will distort reality rather than face something that threatens its stability. Not consciously. Never consciously. The distortion happens in the dark, underneath awareness, and it feels from the inside like simple perception. Like plain fact. Like, this is just who they are. Idealization is one of these distortions. Freud described how, in intense emotional bonds, the mind can inflate the loved object. Strip away the flaws. Erase the contradictions. Build, instead, a polished, coherent, admirable figure, a figure who never disappoints, because disappointment has already been edited out before it can register. Why would the mind do that? Because ambivalence is unbearable. Ambivalence means holding two conflicting feelings toward the same person at the same time. Love and anger. Admiration and disappointment. Need and resentment. Most minds cannot tolerate that tension for long. So they resolve it. Not through understanding. Through splitting. The negative feelings get pushed down, out of awareness. And the positive feelings get amplified until the person becomes perfect. Or close enough to perfect that the cracks stop being visible. Freud noted that this pattern often starts early in the relationship with parents. A child depends completely on a caregiver for survival. That caregiver will inevitably disappoint, frustrate, fail, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in ways that leave real marks. But the child's mind cannot hold, the person I depend on for survival is also flawed and sometimes frightening. Not without terror. So the mind splits. The good parts get idealized. The bad parts get buried, denied, or quietly relocated somewhere else entirely, onto a sibling, a stranger, or later, onto the child's own sense of self-blame. And that early template, built in the nursery, doesn't disappear when we grow up. It gets reactivated, again and again, in every relationship where we need someone to be our foundation. Every partner who becomes the one who makes everything make sense. Every mentor who becomes the one who could never steer me wrong. Think about it. Think about the last time someone criticized a person you idealize, and you felt that surge of defensiveness rise before you could even name it. That surge was not proportional to the criticism. It was proportional to the threat of ambivalence returning, The threat of having to feel two things at once about someone you need to see as whole. You weren't defending their reputation. You were defending your own psychic peace. But if idealization only explained who we protect, that wouldn't be enough. Because the deeper question is why we need someone, anyone, to fill that role in the first place. Why the position has to be occupied at all. Freud gives us the defense mechanism. But there is another thinker who takes us further, into the emptiness the defense is built to cover. And once you see that emptiness, the whole picture changes. Before we go there, let's pause for a moment. If this is landing, if you're recognizing someone right now while watching this, that's exactly the kind of self-honesty this channel exists for. Subscribe because we go deeper into these mechanisms every week, the ones hiding in plain sight, inside the relationships you'd never suspect, wearing the disguise of ordinary love. Notice something else while we're here. Idealization rarely stays quiet. It usually comes with a companion, a second reflex you might not have named yet. The moment someone questions the idealized figure, many people don't just defend, they attack. The critic becomes the problem. The messenger becomes the enemy. You just don't understand them. You weren't there. You have no right to say that. Notice the shift. The conversation is no longer about whether the criticism is accurate. It's about disqualifying the person who dared to bring it up. That's not logic. That's the defense mechanism, working exactly as designed, redirecting the threat outward so the idealized image inside can stay untouched. Now, back to the emptiness. Back to the question Freud left open. Block 2. Lacan and the hole that desire is built around. Jacques Lacan took Freud's insights and pushed them somewhere more radical, somewhere colder, somewhere harder to sit with. For Lacan, the human subject is structured around a fundamental lack. Not a lack of something specific like money or attention or love. A structural lack. Built into language, into identity itself, from the moment we enter the symbolic world of words and roles and names. He called it manque. Lacan argued that desire is never really about the object we think we want. Desire is about what that object represents. What it seems to promise. The illusion that this person, this achievement, this relationship will finally fill the hole. It never does. Because the hole isn't shaped like any object. It's structural. It's part of what it means to be a speaking subject at all, from the very first word you were ever given for yourself. Here's where it connects directly to idealization. When you idealize someone, a parent, a partner, a mentor, you are not just protecting them from ambivalence as Freud showed us. You are using them as a screen onto which you project the fantasy of completeness. The idealized person becomes, unconsciously, the promise that the lack can be filled. That someone somewhere is whole, is not missing anything, is not divided, uncertain, incomplete, like you feel yourself to be, in the quiet moments when no one is watching. And if they are whole, then maybe, by staying close to them, by defending them, by merging with their image, you can borrow that wholeness. Just for a while. Just enough to keep functioning. This is why criticism of an idealized figure feels so dangerous. It's not just information about a person. It's a crack in the screen. A crack that lets your own lack peek through, uninvited. Think about the parent you cannot bear to hear criticized. Is it really about them? Or is it about the fantasy of solid ground they represent? A fantasy you built your own sense of stability on top of, brick by brick, since childhood. Think about the partner you excuse, again and again, even when the excuses stop making sense, even when you can hear yourself stretching the truth to make it fit. Is it loyalty? Or is it that losing the idealized image of them means losing the illusion that your life is complete, your choices were right, your foundation is solid? Lacan would say, what you are defending is not them. It's the fantasy that the lack, your lack, can be closed by someone else's perfection. And here's the part that changes everything. The lack cannot be closed. Not by them. Not by anyone. Not by the next person either, the one you'll be tempted to idealize once this one inevitably disappoints you. Notice, too, how this reframes something you've probably felt but never quite articulated. The intensity of your reaction to criticism of someone you idealize is not measuring how much you love them. It's measuring how much of your own stability is currently on loan from their image. The more precarious your own sense of self, the fiercer the defense. Not because the love is greater. Because the borrowed wholeness has further to fall. This is why some people can hear a partner criticized calmly, weigh it, even agree with parts of it, and others explode instantly, defensively, as if their own existence were under attack. It usually is, in a sense. Just not in the way they think. So what happens when that fantasy screen finally cracks? When the evidence becomes impossible to explain away? Block 3. What happens when the fantasy breaks? Freud has an answer for this moment too, and it's not gentle. He called it the return of the repressed. Whatever gets pushed out of awareness doesn't vanish. It waits. And under the right pressure, a disappointment, a betrayal, a moment of undeniable evidence, it comes back. Often distorted, often intensified, often arriving at the worst possible time, all at once, with no warning. Think about what happens when an idealized figure finally does something that cannot be excused anymore. The reaction is rarely proportional. It's not simple disappointment. It's often devastation, rage, a grief that feels disproportionate to the event itself, as if something much larger than one incident just collapsed. Why? Because it's not just the person who failed. It's the entire defensive structure that collapsed at once. All the split-off doubt, all the buried ambivalence, all the years of unconscious editing, it floods back all together all at once with nowhere left to hide. This is why people describe discovering a parent's flaws, really discovering them, not just knowing abstractly but feeling it in the body, as one of the most disorienting experiences of adult life. It's not the flaw itself. It's the return of everything the idealization had been holding back, all these years quietly underneath the surface. And this is where most people get stuck. Possibly forever if nothing interrupts the pattern. Because there are only two paths from here. Path 1. Rebuild the idealization. Find a new excuse. Patch the screen. Go back to sleep, back to the comfortable version of the story. Path 2. Tolerate the ambivalence. Hold the good and the bad in the same frame about the same person without splitting. Grieve the fantasy of wholeness, and meet the real, limited, contradictory human being underneath. Most people choose path 1. Not out of weakness. Out of the sheer difficulty of tolerating what path 2 demands, which is nothing less than facing yourself without a shield. But there is a third layer here more unsettling than either path. Because the real question isn't just about them. It's about what you'd have to face in yourself, if you stopped needing anyone to be perfect ever again. There's a quieter version of this too, one that doesn't look like collapse at all. It looks like distance. Like slowly, almost imperceptibly stopping the defense without ever consciously deciding to. Some people don't have a dramatic rupture with the idealized figure. They just drift. Stop calling as often. Stop mentioning them the way they used to. Stop needing to bring their name into every conversation as proof of something. That drift is often the ambivalence finally being tolerated, quietly, without fanfare, without anyone naming what's actually happening underneath. It doesn't always look like insight. Sometimes it just looks like growing up. And that brings us to the most uncomfortable point in this entire video. Block 4. The thing no one wants to admit. Here is the idea most people resist the hardest. If the fantasy of the idealized other is what covers your lack, then giving up the idealization means facing the lack directly. With no screen. No fantasy. No one standing in for your own completeness anymore. Lacan was clear about this in his own difficult, unsentimental way. The subject would rather repeat the same painful pattern over and over, defending the same fragile idealizations, than confront the fact that the lack is permanent, structural, unfillable by any external person, no matter how carefully chosen. This is why people don't just idealize once and learn. They idealize again and again. New parent figures. New partners. New mentors. Same pattern, different face, different name, same hidden function. Because the alternative, the direct encounter with your own incompleteness, feels unbearable. Feels, at times, like it might undo you entirely. Here is the most definitive point of this video. The fierce defense of an idealized person is never really loyalty. It is the sound of someone protecting their own psychic survival, disguised as devotion to another person. And the only way out is not finding a more perfect person to idealize. It's accepting that no one, including you, was ever whole to begin with. That wholeness was never on offer for anyone and never will be. That the lack is not a flaw to fix. It's the basic condition of being a subject at all, the ground you actually stand on, whether you accept it or not. Sit with that for a second. Not as failure. As the price of being real instead of a fantasy screen for someone else, or a person needing someone else to be a fantasy screen for you forever, indefinitely, at enormous cost. There's a strange relief on the other side of this, though almost no one believes it until they get there. Once you stop needing anyone to be whole, you stop needing to defend anyone's perfection, including your own. You can finally disagree with your father without a crisis. Notice your partner's flaws without panic. Question your mentor's ideas without guilt. Not because you love them less. Because you're no longer asking them to carry a weight that was never theirs to carry, the weight of your own completeness. Block 5. The pattern that repeats until you name it. Here is what this looks like when it's not theory anymore, when it's Tuesday afternoon and someone just said the wrong thing about someone you love. A grown adult, financially independent, capable, respected in their own field, still cannot hear a single word against a parent who raised them with real, undeniable harm. Not confusion. Not nuance. Total, immediate, reflexive defense. What? Because that parent is still, unconsciously, occupying the position of the one who makes the world coherent. To see them clearly would mean the coherence goes with them. A partner stays in a relationship long after the evidence has piled up, long after friends have stopped asking questions and started just watching, worried, from a distance. Not because they don't see it. Often they see it with painful clarity. But seeing it fully and acting on it means admitting the foundation they built their sense of self on was never as solid as it felt. A student defends a mentor's every decision, every contradiction, every failure, with an intensity that has nothing to do with the mentor's actual arguments. Because the mentor was never just a mentor. The mentor was proof that brilliance, order, certainty exists somewhere in the world, and that proximity to them meant borrowing a little of that certainty for yourself. Different faces, same architecture. A person occupying the position of the one who is whole, so that you don't have to face the one who isn't. Which is you. Which is everyone. And here is the loop this video keeps closing and reopening and closing again because it's the loop underneath every other loop. Every idealization eventually cracks. And every crack, if unexamined, gets repaired with a new idealization, somewhere else in someone else rather than faced directly. Unless something interrupts the cycle. Unless someone at some point decides to look at the mirror instead of the portrait. Here's one more version of this pattern, quieter, easy to miss, but everywhere once you know to look for it. A person moves from one idealized romantic partner to the next, each time swearing this one is different, this one finally understands them, this one will not disappoint like the last. The details change. The job, the city, the face. The function stays identical. Because the search was never really for a specific person. It was for someone to occupy the position. The one who is whole so I don't have to be. Ask that person to describe what went wrong in the last 3 relationships, and you'll often hear a strange thing. Not different stories. The same story told with different names. That repetition is not bad luck. It's the unconscious, doing exactly what Lacan said it does, returning again and again to the same structure because the structure itself, the need for a screen, was never addressed. Block 6. The mirror, not the portrait. Here is the image to carry with you, out of this video and into your actual life. The idealized person was never a portrait painted accurately of who they are. They were a mirror reflecting back what you needed to see to avoid facing your own lack. A portrait shows someone else. A mirror shows you. Every time you defended them past reason, past evidence, past your own private doubts, you weren't protecting a portrait. You were protecting a mirror. Because breaking it meant seeing yourself, exposed, incomplete, without a fantasy left to stand behind. This is not an argument for cynicism. It's not a call to stop loving people, or to strip every relationship down to suspicion. It's an invitation to separate 2 things that have been fused together for most of your life. The actual person and the function you assign them. You can love someone fully and still see them clearly. In fact, Freud and Lacan would both say, that is the only way to actually love someone. Not the fantasy. Not the mirror. So here is the choice. And it is binary. And it is yours. You can keep defending the mirror. Keep needing someone else to be flawless so you don't have to face what's missing in you. Or you can let the mirror crack on purpose this time, and meet both of you, the idealized person and yourself, as what you actually are. Limited, divided, incomplete, and real. This choice does not resolve itself with time. It gets more expensive the longer it's postponed. Every year spent defending a fantasy is a year not spent facing the truth that could actually set you free from repeating this, again, with the next person you decide to idealize. And notice, this isn't only about the people you idealize outward. Sometimes the mirror faces the other direction. Sometimes you are the one being idealized by a child, a partner, a student, someone who has quietly assigned you the role of the one who is whole. Carrying that role is exhausting even when it feels flattering. Because it asks you to perform completeness you don't actually have, to protect someone else's fantasy at the cost of your own honesty. Freeing yourself from idealizing others and freeing others from idealizing you are the same movement, seen from 2 different angles. Both require the same thing, letting the real limited person show through, instead of the flawless one the fantasy demands. If this video names something you've been circling for a long time without quite having the words for it, subscribe. This channel exists for exactly this kind of confrontation, translated from theory into something you can actually use, week after week, mechanism after mechanism. Block 7. The closing choice. One mirror or one portrait. Fantasy or the person actually standing in front of you. The choice was always yours. It still is. Stop defending the reflection. Start looking at what it was hiding. Because underneath every fierce, disproportionate, unquestioning defense of someone else, there is a quieter, harder question waiting. Not, why do they deserve my loyalty? But, what am I protecting myself from by refusing to see them clearly? Answer that honestly even once and the fantasy loses its grip. Not all at once. Not painlessly. But permanently, in a way that no future idealization can fully undo. This won't happen through one video, one insight, one moment of clarity while watching a screen. It happens slowly through repeated small refusals to look away. The next time you feel that surge of defensiveness rising in your chest, before the words even form, pause. Just for a second. Ask what exactly is under threat. Is it them? Or is it the fantasy of wholeness you built on top of them years ago without ever choosing to? That question, asked honestly again and again over months, over years, is the actual work. Not a single revelation. A practice. The mirror was never them. Was always you. Look again.